Good morning. My name is Eddie Howard, and I'm a junior at Vicksburg High School. Many of you know our first speaker today. His passion for education and commitment is to create a brighter future for all students is contagious. Please help me welcome a true leader, Superintendent Chad Shealy.
Thank you, sir. Great job. Well, thank you for the opportunity. They gave me nothing to walk around with, so this is going to be tough. Hang on. I got one. All right, testing. Good. Well, good morning, Vicksburg Warren School District. Today is a great day to learn something new. I'm going to tell you, as I started talking, they told me I had about 15 minutes, which y'all know I can sneeze for that long, so I had to narrow it down. But you can't give me a mic and a group of educators without me talking about something that's didactic. This little snippet is going to be something that ties you to research and what we're doing with Ford and GL. I don't know, when I taught, it made it easier for me to use mnemonic devices and physical things, so I'm going to ask you to do some of that this morning. If you could, just stand up with me, and it's going to help me remember my speech, and it's going to help you remember what we talked about. Raise either hand. I'm agnostic on this, so pick you a hand. If you're left or right, doesn't matter. Put one finger up. First thing we're going to remember about this is new. That's easy, right? New's easy because it's the first. We are the first in a lot of things, by the way, because I like that. I'm an only child. I love to be first and only. First and repetitive. First and repetitive changes the brain. And this one, I don't know, and this is my ADHD kicking in. Did y'all have underoos when you were a kid? I did. I had Spider-Man underoos. My mom used to get mad because I climb all over the furniture. But I want your best Spider-Man. Best Spider-Man. Web. And you can pick your own emotion here. So you'll learn a lot about your neighbor. Just visualize your emotion. But on the count of three, non-linguistically, you can get a little erg or arg or whatever you want to do in there. But when I count to three, you're going to show your emotion, whatever that emotion is, on the count of three. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I know mine. I know it's kind of Incredible Hulkish. You know what I mean? Makes me feel good. So we're going to do this again. First, repetitive changes the brain to create a web that invokes emotion. All right, y'all can sit down. It's good stuff. That's a lot better than a 5-point bullet points, isn't it? So one of the things, there's a guy named Donald J. Ford. That ain't where you thought I was going, was it, Jim? Donald J. Ford, and I'm kind of a research junkie, and I was reading one of his white papers, and he talked about the physiology of the brain and how it reacts to learning. And it was huge in its context to what we're doing with Ford and GL, so I felt obliged to share that with you this morning. One of the things it talked about is there's a novelty within our brain. And it ties learning to things that are novel and new. Things that are new, it automatically pays attention to. My dad's he loves stuff, but he loves Meerkat Manor. Did y'all watch that show when it was on? Kind of operates that way. Your brain's kind of like a stack of meerkats. It's got an orthographic processor that's back here, and everything it sees and hears, it gives attention to the first time it sees it. First time. It's that sentinel, and it makes a chirp, and all of them stand up, like on their little post when they do it, and they're all looking at it. And what it does is it compares new information to old information, and if it already knows it, all of them go back to sleep. It's an amazing thing. Our organ, our brain is fantastic. So what it does, it's effective, it's efficient. Doesn't waste time on things it already knows. You English teachers know this because you get all those ofs and these that the kids miss when they're editing their paper. Well, that's one of the things when you consider learning something new, something novel, and the more frequent you are located to its origin, you will remember it better. So it's a memory tool. When you talk about what Ford and GL brings to our students, it is definitely out of the box. It is definitely new. Some people would dare to say that's not necessarily the case. Mr. Joe did some amazing things when he was over at Hines to begin to take the real workforce issues and place them in the classroom. So one of the things we'll do through Ford and GL that is new, for the first time we're going to be inviting people from our community into the work of what we do, and inviting you as teachers out into the community to see the work they do. We do that very specifically to tailor the message of what we're giving to our children so that they can find it to be relevant. That's awesome. The second thing, anybody remember what it was? Repetitively. You do something once, you can remember it. You do something multiple times, you can remember it better. Now, the thing I like about the way that Ford and GL addresses this context, it changes the way we instruct. We don't instruct in isolation any longer. You elementary folks do this constantly. You have thematic units, and you will walk into your math class and hear something. You'll walk into your English class. Well, actually, it's the same person in elementary. And hear the same thing. Well, what we begin to do in middle school and high school is we begin to operate in silos with that content. But imagine a world where I'm in my science class, and I'm hearing about, let's say, phenotype and genotype, and how many different kind of flies have red eyes, and these have white eyes, and then you leave, and then you go to math, and you hear something else. Well, imagine a world where you take the statistical relevance of the information you just learned in science, and you put it into practice in the math class. Then you leave the math class, and you write, and you read informational text, and you develop ideas around genetics in your language. Well, imagine the social implications when you get up out of your seat and you go to ERDIC and you sit in a lab where they're engineering bugs to eat pestilent plants in the waterways right now. That changes the scope of what children learn. So the more they hear it, the more frequently. This is Alonzo Stevens, amazing man. He's our board member. Y'all give him a hand. He didn't hear you. So the more frequently you can hear it, it sticks. Third thing. What was the third thing? Changes your brain structure. This is great for those of you who are over a certain age, and you can just pick an age. Our brain doesn't stop learning. It never stops learning. Now, we choose not to learn new stuff, but our brain never stops learning. There is no such thing as fixed mindset. It's a farce. You can think and believe in it all you like, but it doesn't exist because your brain won't let it be so. Remember that thing? Doesn't matter if I'm 80 or 30 or 12 or 10. It takes past experiences and compares them to the new experiences. Now, the strength in this particular thing, your brain can't get any bigger. It's kind of got capacity issues. It can't get any bigger than the skull that you got. Some of us got bigger noggins than others. But God made a way. We have wrinkles that form. I tell kids, the more you read, the more wrinkles you create. And if you look, they've done autopsies of brilliant people, and they got the most wrinkled brains because your cerebrum, it folds over to create more surface area for you to learn with. And that's awesome. That means it doesn't matter how old you get, you can continue to learn. You can continue to move. Well, as that place happens, the physiology of the brain, what happens, you got dendrites and axons, and they communicate through chemicals. And what they do is they will reach over here and attach a new pathway and go, hey, I've never done this before. I'm going to show you something real quick. Everybody stand up. Did you watch Bugs Bunny? I used to watch Bugs Bunny. All right, we're going to do something. I'm going to try to hold this under my arm and do it. Actually, babe, come hold this. Thank you. All right, come on, you had to keep up with me. All right, Bugs Bunny. Everybody remember Bugs? You got Bugs Bunny, and then he had that guy that was always hunting him. You remember who it was? Elmer Fudd, and he was always going what? Wabbit hunting. Y'all, that's great. See, that's prior information, just in case you're wondering. All right, so what happens is in the cartoon you had Bugs Bunny, and he was always running from the gun. You got Elmer over here. Well, then something would happen in the course of that episode, and it didn't really matter which episode because it was all of them. It was the same thing. Bugs would get the gun, and all of a sudden he'd start chasing Elmer. Well, and then it'd snap back, and then it'd come over, and then it'd snap back, and then it'd come over. So let's do this real quick. Hold up your bunny. Hold up your gun. We're going to go this direction. Now we're going to swap. Then we're going to swap. Now we're going to, wait a minute, y'all are confusing me. I was good. Now I'm seeing like rabbits with 3 ears and a double barrel shotgun or a rabbit with a kickstand. What happened? Thank you, baby. That's new learning. Brand new. It was hard. It was hard the first time you did it, right? Your brain is an amazing organ. The more you do this, and this afternoon, I promise you go home and you'll be like, dadgummit, that was too simple. It'll adapt, and it will learn. You can learn new things. It's going to make new pathways. That's very important when you're dealing with kids. Don't ever think you have a child that cannot learn. All children can learn. It's a fundamental belief. Absolutely. And all means all. It was one of the prerequisites we're working with Ford. They said, all right, now if you're going to pull this off, this is for all students, not just the ones you deem special. I said, baby, you're talking to the wrong fellow. They all special to me. He said, that's what we wanted to hear. Well, they refused to work with the community that doesn't have a growth mindset, which was awesome. The next thing we talked about, we got one, we got frequency, we got change the brain into Spider-Man. That's right. It's a web. And that's mine. When you read the white paper, it's not going to be in there. But what it does is it begins to connect different portions. And there's a way of belief that goes, I need to put these things in my lesson plans to address individual kids based on their learning styles. What's kind of a false operation. Now, there are things that kids really do learn well with, but guess what? All kids really do learn well with. There's no point in isolating those things, because what begins to happen is the kid go, well, I'm not a kinesthetic learner. That's a lie. You are. You just may not be good at it. The more things I can engage at one time, the more I can infuse, the stronger that bond becomes. I see Brother Blackburn out there. If I told you right now, brother, he owns a car dealership. If y'all don't know him. If I could tell you a way to put more cars on your lot cheaper and get them off of your lot faster, would you be interested in talking with me? He is in. Look, already he is in. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about something that's going to make the effort that you put forth every day, the hard work that you do every single day, it's going to make it easier. Because we're using the brain's natural response. So when I begin to tie these things together, when I take a math course and now it's tied to a language course that's now tied to a CTE course. What do you mean CTE? What, it's tied to an elective course? What are you talking about? David Campbell, when I worked for him, I was able to come in there. I looked every teacher in the eye and said, give me a lesson plan. We're going to consolidate this thing. Didn't I? I'm not lying, am I? Did it right out of the gate. Because I knew that when my students had the opportunity to have multiple ways to see that information. If I got an English teacher who's writing about math and a math teacher who's using the structure of the English class, then guess what? I just got a double dip in my content. So Ford NGL puts these teachers together, and they begin to take that and move it over to community college? Are you kidding me? Yes, our community college teachers. They're helping plan with us. Imagine the strength of what happens to children now, because they see it and they connect those webs all across their brain. And there's about 7 parts of the brain. The more of those you can engage, the better off that you will be in making that information stick the first time. So putting a lesson together that is strategically planned to do that is huge. Last one, and of course my emotion was the Incredible Hulk. I just like that. I also did that too. I'd go in my closet and put on little clothes when I was a kid, and I'd bust out of them because, Lou Ferrigno was my hero. You did that too, didn't you? You did it. The emotional context is very intentional. The exercises we did today were very intentional. I got you out of your seat. I made you laugh. I can tell you right now to turn to you're not going to, but you could turn to your neighbor and tell your neighbor something that someone said to you in middle school that hurt your feelings. I'm 44 years old. That emotion was very real to me. It made a lasting impression in a part of my brain. Nobody had to teach me that. It was said one time. I can do that with these 2 boys right here when they were born. Ooh, it changed my life. I remember that little red head I carried around in my pocket when he was just a bean. And I called him the Shealy bean. Then he got a name, and it was Grayson after I found out he was a boy. No kidding, I promise. I carried it around, showed it to everybody to look at it. Then I made it to the hospital, and I'm sitting there, and I was I'm an artist also. And when he was born, I was so overcome with what happened, I had to record it. I looked at the nurse and I said, I need something to write on. She goes, what do you mean? I said, give me something to write on. You got a pencil? She said, yeah. She brought me the back of a nursing pad, and I drew his first portrait because he was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen in my life. And I love my wife now. She's beautiful too. But I'm telling you, something about that moment, you can't take it away. You can beat my brains out, and it's still going to be there. You'll find it. It's going to be right there. Emotion is important. When you talk about what Ford NGL does, it brings advisories. It brings choice to children. People get to pick what they're interested in. And we found very clearly that there were 3 reasons why kids leave us. Now, we didn't just look what the national stats say, and that they said the same thing. We actually met with dropouts. We put them around a table. We were meeting with a bunch of brilliant people, and we got to talking about what we're going to do about dropout prevention. And I said, raise your hand if you dropped out. Of course, none of us had. And I said, all right, meeting's over. Looked at Dr. Winters. I said, go find me some dropouts, and let's find out. And we did that. We met with them as a district, talked to them, said, why did you leave? Number 1 reason, nobody cared about me. That's the truth. National stats will say that too. Relevancy is the number 2 reason. I didn't see it meaningful for the rest of my life. And number 3, it was just daggum hard. The rigor was too tough. I'm going to tell you, engaging a kid in this process with project-based learning makes them use the thing that's going to work for them. And they become smart because they remember the things because we're changing our instruction. Transformational instruction is the main thing that we start with the Ford NGL. The other things it does with these advisories, we have people, if you're an advisory teacher, if you're in this room and you're a teacher at high school, you're an advisory teacher. You got 25 kids, you're their school family. And sometimes in school families, you got to call and pick up the phone the day they don't show up. I expect a week from now, in the junior class, there's going to be a bunch of your kids that aren't going to show up because we've got a state law that says they can leave if they want to. You better pick up the phone first day and say, get yourself up here at this school. I miss you. I need you here. I'm better with you here. That advisor carries over for 40 years. Now imagine the benefit of that for a child that doesn't have a positive adult relationship. Transformational. So we talk about these practices. This is not some fad. This is not some cool thing that the guy that just got here 4 years ago came up with. This is something that has worked in every single community. I believe we're the 25th, is that right, nationally? That is something that is going to transform your classroom. It's going to make it be the thing that makes you love your job. Because the other thing we found out in every one of these places where these exist, there's a 75% satisfaction rate in teachers, which is about 30% higher than the national average. This is hard work, y'all. I know you know it. You do it every day. You got to find a way to make it easy on yourself. And I promise you, as we move through this process, this project-based learning is going to be good for kids. It's going to get them what they need. It's going to provide the relevance. And the last thing, and David gave me 5 minutes a while ago. Last thing I'll say this. Community members out there. There was a research study 25 years ago done by Harvard University. Said that the major problem with education is there's a disconnect between elementary, high school, and post-secondary. I think they left out a piece. First of all, it's pre-K. You know, we got that. Congrats, you pre-K teachers. But y'all know, right? Isn't that amazing? We got an awesome school board. They just keep saying, come on, it's like the Statue of Liberty over here. We'll teach you. But we left out the hirers. It's not about education. It's not about, it's not about higher education, Chris. It's about the employers. It's about students being college, career, and life prepared. When they graduate us, that's what we want them to be. In order for us to be that, this is the process that we're going to operate in, because not only do they have positive relationships with you in the buildings, they're going to have a person that works in the field of study that they want to be in that has a professional relationship with them. So we are incredibly excited to bring this process. We've worked 2 years to get where we are. And some of you were the heroes. You said, you know what, I'll go on the ice first. I'll be the first set of cohorted teachers you got in the academy, and I'll go out and change my lesson plans, and I'll make this process different. And I applaud you for that bravery. But this is what's best for children. It's what's right for children. So we're very excited that y'all have chosen us, and we're very excited to move forward in this process. All right. Thank y'all so much.